guys, Kevin Sorbo here, and I am really looking forward to meeting you all today. I'm very excited to talk to you about what God is not only doing in my life, but what He is going to be doing in your life. So looking forward to it. Can't wait to meet you all. Take care and God bless.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Amen. Well, you know, we've heard from a couple of pretty great speakers today, and we've been able to worship together, worship God together as one. Awesome. For the main event, this is it. He received international stardom when he landed the lead role in Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, which went on to become the most watched TV show in the world. Following that success, Kevin Sorbo had the lead role as Captain Dylan Hunt in Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. Sorbo has appeared in over 70 movies and over 20 television shows. He has narrated many documentaries and recently starred in the major motion picture Reagan, portraying the late president's pastor. Kevin released his memoir in 2012 titled True Strength: My Journey from Hercules to Mere Mortal and How Nearly Dying Saved My Life. He also co-wrote with his wife Sam the follow-up book, True Faith: Embracing Adversity to Live in God's Light.
So the message I have for you today is that God loves you, but not the way you think. See, if you think that God is vengeful or angry, then you do not know God's love, which is infinite and supernatural. We can't possibly understand the depth of God's love for us because we can't fit an all-powerful, all-knowing, glorious God inside our puny little heads. You see, because it just won't fit. I'm going to need a bigger head.
Gentlemen of the Valley, please give a warm welcome to Kevin Sorbo. Woo!
All right. I can't see you guys, but I know you're out there. How is everybody doing? In this crazy, insane, angry, divisive world that we're living in right now. Could you imagine if God was woke? Suppose like today's wokey, God was unforgiving, judgmental, quick to cancel, bent on destroying your life, your reputation, your family, your livelihood. Imagine an all-powerful wokey with no compassion, no understanding, and no grace, none whatsoever. Well, thank God, God is not woke. God's attitude to a perfect inhumanity is one of forgiveness and love. God wants what's best for you, for all of us. He doesn't want to destroy you. And lacking a sense of history, the wokies out there, who unfortunately are going to public schools and being indoctrinated, since they don't teach history anymore in the proper way, they're rewriting it, don't realize that their philosophy and tactics, they scarcely differ from those of Stalin and Hitler. They don't. Those two gentlemen did not believe in dissent. They did not believe in free speech. They didn't care much for human life either. Between the two of them, some 80 million people were killed in the last century. They were the canceled champs of the era, and again, thank God, God is not woke. Segue. We got any golfers out there? Good. So Jesus and Moses have a Monday night game every week. They tee up late afternoons. They love it. Sun going down. They usually have a foursome. One guy can't make it. The other guy says he's running late. You guys tee up without me. First hole. It's Masters Week. We can talk about golf. First hole is a 480-yard par 4, long par 4. Dog leg right around the lake. Moses gets up and says, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to cut 100 yards off this hole. I'm going for the green. Jesus says, go for it. He hits a beautiful drive. He's not going to make it. Goes in the water. But he's Moses. He parts the water. Walks down there. Hits it up within 20 feet. Chance for a birdie. Jesus yells, I'm going for it too. He hits it. He's not going to make it. Better drive than Moses. Hits the water, but stays on top of the water. He's Jesus. He walks on water. Gets up there, hits it within 2 feet. He's going to have a kick-in birdie. He's going to make it. Just before they putt, they get a big whistle. They turn around, the third party showed up. They whistle him up. He hits. He's going for it, too. Better driving both of them, it's not going to make it. Before it hits the water, a big turtle comes up, bounces off the shell high in the air. And the eagle grabs it in his talons, drops it in the hole for a hole in one. And Moses looks at Jesus and says, I hate playing golf with your dad. Yep. My new F word on the golf course is Fauci, but we can talk about that later. Before I really get into this here, I would love to have all veterans, all police officers, first responders, please stand up to be recognized for the service you've done for our country. God bless you all. God bless you all. I should have sat down. I stayed standing up for my kid brother, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Sorbo, 23 is in the Army. He's my hero as well. So, yes, thank you guys who understand that freedom is not free. So an atheist college professor, I'm sorry, that's redundant. A college professor, he asks his class, can you touch God? And they all look around and say, no, you can't touch God. Well, can you see God? And they all look around, no, you can't see God. Then you must conclude that there is no God. A student in the back of the class raises a hand. He calls in the student. The student stands up. He says, sir, can you touch or see your brain? Well, you must conclude, sir, that you have no brain. I feel like many of our politicians that we elect into office are running around D.C. without a brain right now. Scary. And unfortunately, we're the ones who vote them into office. That is, of course, if they actually count your vote, right? It's crazy. Politics, right? Do you know where politics came from, by the way? Poly is Latin for many. Ticks, of course, are blood-sucking parasites. So, it's crazy. A little bit about my life. I chose acting as a career at a very young age. I was 11 years old. By the way, I grew up in Minnesota, so I'm from a Big Ten state, as you guys all are here. And I was 11 years old. Our fifth grade class took a field trip into the Guthrie Theater. Guthrie Theater is a very famous theater in Minneapolis. And it's been around for decades. And the play was The Merchant of Venice. It was Shakespeare. I was 11, so I don't know what the hell they were saying because I was 11 and it was Shakespeare. But I was mesmerized by the actors on stage. And on the bus ride home on our bus, my mom was sitting next to her. She's one of the chaperones. She said, well, you're very quiet. What do you think? I said, Mom, I think I'm going to be an actor. She patted my thigh, the mom thing, and said, that's nice, dear. I said, you wait. Now, I was raised a good Lutheran kid. Church every week. We pray at all the meal times. Bible readings with my mom and dad, of course. And being a strong Christian, and thanks to my parents, I had a very strong moral foundation that stood me well, even when it was tested through the years to come. And trust me, it was tested. First in college, and then my post-college years as a commercial actor and print model. I spent 3.5 years traveling through Europe in a very secular continent of our world. And through 7 years of pounding the pavement, when I moved to Los Angeles to pursue that actor's dream, and dealing with the rejection and the traffic and high taxes and politics of that lovely state. And also Los Angeles means city of angels. It's really the city of broken dreams. I saw many people fall to alcoholism and drugs within my industry. Then I got my big break. I got the lead role in Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. That was, thank you. And I know they said earlier, but by the way, that was the most watched TV show in the world. And yeah, it's a sin of pride, but how many actors can say they've had the most watched TV show in the world? It was kind of cool, so cut me a little slack on that, okay? So during that time, there were plenty of opportunities for me to abandon my beliefs, to be persuaded to move basically to the dark side, I like to call it. And trust me, they tried. But the solid foundation that was built upon my life through my parents, coaches, mentors, teachers, everything I had in my life, which a lot of young people aren't getting today, unfortunately. So I was able to fight it off. And yeah, there was a few years in my 20s there I stopped going to church. But there's no really valid reason behind that, because I've always been a believer. I still prayed. I still talked to, for those of you who are uncomfortable with the prayer, you can talk any way you want to God. You can be in your car. You can be jogging, be working out. You'll talk to him anytime. You can call him dude. He doesn't care. He wants you to be there for him. I've got atheist friends, agnostic friends, and I say, well, do something called the grateful prayer. And like, what's that? If you're in your car and you're stuck in traffic, whatever, just say, I'm grateful I got a car. I'm grateful I got a pillow to sleep on. There are a lot of things to be grateful about. I think miracles happen every day. We just stop paying attention to them. They're always around. It's not always going to be walking on water, but they happen all the time. So once Hercules hit that big screen, the writers wanted to start looking at more colorful plot lines. I said, no. Even though it's mythological, I got to give credit to the writers overall, because they wrote very strong moral fabric episodes. A lot of humor. Sam Raimi was our executive producer. You know him from The Evil Dead and from all the Spider-Man movies he directed. I think he did the most recent one of Doctor Strange as well. And I told him, I said, when I got the role, I said, we need to make sure that people laugh with us and not laugh at us. We can't take ourselves seriously on the show, because it's too easy to make fun of. And it was the right way to go, to make it campy and fun, and people loved it. But at the height of my career, in promoting not only my first big budget movie called Kull the Conqueror, Kull was the prequel of Conan the Barbarian. Arnold made Conan very famous. Kull is the father of Conan in the books and the comic books. So even though Arnold Schwarzenegger's older than me, I am his father. Just so you know. And I speak English much better than he does. But during the filming of that one, tragedy struck me. And I wrote it in my book. It's called True Strength, My Journey from Hercules to Mere Mortal. I'm Nearly Dying Saved My Life. And the book tells a lot about resorting to and relying on my faith in the aftermath of such a huge loss. Yeah, I had faith. I've always had faith, but I never needed faith until this happened to me. I think some of you can maybe relate to that, because I think everybody's got a story. God never promised an easy life. We're going to hit roadblocks. How do you react to those roadblocks? But as the Lord gives, he also provides. And I had already met my future wife, and despite my misgivings and my handicap, she went on and married me anyway, and she got the worst part before hearing the words from the pastor, for better or for worse. Sam was a cheerleader for me through an exhausting battle for return to health that lasted nearly 3 years. And she wrote a few of the chapters in True Strength, which of course she says are the best chapters. She's a lot smarter than me. She was a biochemical engineer major at Duke University. I went to college to play sports and meet girls, so it was a whole different way of the way we looked at our college years. Then as newlyweds, we discovered that my disabilities weren't confined to my illness alone. And believe me, that was bad enough, but initially my wife and I failed to conceive children. It was another long battle. And another book followed, True Strength. This one is written along with my wife, Sam. It's called True Faith, Embracing Adversity to Live in God's Light. And True Faith, my wife and I both use faith almost as an invited guest to come into our lives. It's this invisible helper through hardship and heartbreak, and we tell a story of our struggles, both for children and our marriage, because it's nothing more than a bigger struggle for a marriage that ultimately the goal was really to have children. And later in the book, I talk more candidly about my transition from a Hollywood action star with 2 long-running series of Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, followed by the first show Gene Roddenberry wrote of Star Trek called Andromeda, which I was Captain Dylan Hunt. Thank you. And I went into producing, directing, and of course, I starred in a lot of faith-based movies. It all started with what I consider really my first faith-based movie, and it's called What If. I've done over 80 movies, and I put What If in my top 3. And how that even came about, it was 13 years ago. A friend of mine by the name of Dallas Jenkins, you might know that name, we're doing little things called The Chosen right now. Yeah. So Dallas came to me. His kid's roughly the same age as mine, and he said, hey, I got the script. What do you think of it? And I read it. I called him up, who's playing Pastor Ben? He listed a couple of their actors, and I said, no, I'm Pastor Ben. He goes, dude, I can't afford you. It's a really low-budget movie. I said, I don't care. Pay me what the Screen Actors Guild says you have to pay, the lowest amount. He goes, seriously? I said, yes. It is an amazing, amazing movie. If you have not seen What If, you must see it. Same writers that did God's Not Dead. In my book, it's a better movie. Now, the tie-in with Dallas and his father, Jerry Jenkins. Of course, Jerry was the one who funded What If and also executive produced it. But Jerry Jenkins is half the writer, along with Tim LaHaye of the writing team that did the Left Behind book. So my latest movie is called Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist. It's out streaming on Amazon now. It's in theaters. I hope you get a chance to see it. Those were 80 million best-selling books. They're huge. So please check out that movie. We're going to do the sequel to that later this year. I'll be directing that one as well. Had a great time doing it, so please check it out. So because of my books and the movies I've been doing now over the last dozen years, I've been fortunate to be part of a lot of speaking events like this one. I talk on a number of different topics. I talk at pro-life events. I talk at Youth for Christ events, Christian education, on medical, on motivational, whatever. Things, a road I never thought I'd be going down is being up here in front of you. It's been a blessing, and it opened a whole different door for me when I got as sick as I did, and we'll get to that as well. But a lot of people like me to come because they're curious how a Christian in Hollywood who professes faith in God and Jesus Christ, that makes me kind of interesting to people, saying, how can you possibly even keep working in that town? How can you even keep getting work in that town? Well, as I became more vocal about my politics and my faith, my longtime agent and manager called me into their office one day. And it was interesting because their offices are about 20 miles apart in Los Angeles there. They never meet up together in the same office. So I knew this was going to be some kind of intervention or something. I didn't know what was going on. And I walked in, and sure enough, they said that we can't work with you anymore. No one wants to hire you. So before cancel culture became a term, I think I was the first victim of cancel culture within Hollywood, and got a blacklist from them. Now, if it wasn't for independent movies, I wouldn't have a career. I thank God for independent movies, because since they booted me out, I've shot over 50 movies. Thank you. So I mentioned I've shot over 80 movies. Not all of them are good, but most of them are. There's about a dozen that suck, and I wish I didn't do them, but that does, that happens. But trust me, in an industry like Hollywood, and you know it, you see the hypocrisy every day with these people. They scream for tolerance. They scream for freedom of speech, but it's a one-way street with them. And you know that. Even our governments of today do that same thing. And their favorite weapon, of course, is fear. And we saw that with COVID, didn't we? Churches are not essential. Strip clubs and liquor stores are okay. Don't walk outside, there's COVID. I could talk about this for hours. I won't get into that. It drives me crazy. What they did to the world, it drives me crazy. But getting back to Hollywood, you all see it out there, hypocrisy every single day. And something I've come to realize, that in Hollywood, being a Christian is worse than being a conservative. And since I'm both, in their eyes, I'm the double leper. They want nothing to do with me. And I keep asking, why is Christianity so violently attacked in our world today? And other religions are so upheld, like that peaceful one that you know I'm talking about, where there's nothing peaceful about it. Hollywood drives the culture, and politicians perform the script written by that culture. Andrew Breitbart, who started Blaze, said, a good friend of mine, said that politics is downstream of culture. Who runs the culture? Hollywood does. Mainstream media does. And what are they spreading? You see the movies they spread out there. It's all their propaganda, it's all their hate, their violence, their sex, their anger, their divisiveness. It's unbelievable what they're doing. And my job is to make movies that they used to make. Because I want to make Hollywood great again, is what I want to do. Because in their minds, how dare you be a patriot and love America? I was walking through the airport, fly a lot. I had a hoodie on, it says Patriot right across the front. Big red letters on a black hoodie. Flight attendant walking at me, heading to her next flight. She smiled. Oh, are you from New England? Are you a Patriots fan? I said, no, I'm a Patriot. I love America. Boom, 180 switch. Her face, she frowned at me. And as she walked by, I said, try a different country then. Go to the country that you wanted to live, America to turn into. I look at all these mostly under 30-year-olds that actually believe socialism and communism is a good thing. I say, I'll tell you what, we waste so many dollars in other countries. Why don't we spend you a first-class ticket to North Korea, Venezuela, Russia, and see what socialism and communism is really like, and ask me if that's the way you want to live. There's no boats going from Key West to Cuba. There's a reason for that. America's government was formed under Judeo-Christian values. There weren't other values or morals that these men who founded this incredible nation, pledging their very lives to defend the simple promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our ideas, their ideas, came directly from the Bible. Our laws came from the Bible. The Bible was the school book. Everybody was homeschooled at one time back in those days. Public education, don't get me going on that either. By the way, I think you guys realize you don't have a conforming progressive Hollywood type speaking at your event today, so. I was going to start with ladies and gentlemen, but I didn't want to offend anybody's pronouns, but we can get to that one later too. Crazy. Crazy. If you don't follow me on Twitter, please do. Go to K-Sorbs, K-S-O-R-B-S. My buddies call me Sorbs, K-Sorbs on Twitter. I post very truthful sarcasm. Like when COVID was going strong, I said, you want to get rid of COVID? Tell the Clintons COVID's got something on them. If the government can print money, why do we have to pay taxes? And this one is very topical right now. Why is it considered sexual harassment to talk about sex in the workplace, but not to 8-year-olds in our schools? Right? And why do we send billions of our taxpayer dollars to countries that hate us? They can hate us for free. Keep the money here. And if you follow me on Facebook, 2 years ago, Zuckerberg and his little troll minions took me down. They took away 4.1 million followers on Facebook because I was speaking the truth. So one of the quickest things I follow up on Twitter was, I need more conspiracy theories because mine keep coming true. The truth is intolerant of a lie, and many would rather keep their heads in the sand and run from the truth. We see it every day. Any kind of confrontation with people with their labels, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're this, blah, blah, blah. They have nothing to back it up. All they got is that little banter phrase. There's no facts behind it. And if you hit them with truth, they're like, la, 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 closing their ears, and that's why I think they call it La La Land in California. Proverbs 9:10 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And for those fighting for a culture of depravity in this country, it isn't God that they fear. They ignore God. They resent God. They deny God. In fact, they actually believe they are God. And trust me, I played one of them in a movie called God's Not Dead. How many saw God's Not Dead? Good movie. Your support made that $2 million budget movie, which is like catering budget in Pirates of the Caribbean, because there's a $300 million budget. That movie made $140 million because of people like you. Yeah. And the history of Hollywood movies, tens of thousands made since they started making movies. That movie ranks number 5 dollar for dollar return, 70 times return on the investment. I know. And I know some of you are going, wait a minute. Pirates and Avengers make $2 billion. I go, yeah, they need to make $800 million to break even. So they do very well. $2 billion is very good, but not returned. I could not get in Good Morning America, Today's Show, any network shows to talk about how successful this movie was because it's got God in it. If I played a transsexual, pedophile, Islamic terrorist, I'd probably win an Academy Award. It's weird. It's weird what's going on out there. And a lot of people ask me, and God said, Dad, you're a Christian. How did you play a character like that? How do you play this atheist professor? And I said, that's really easy. See, I thought of a Christian, then I just took away all reason and accountability, and it was just right there in front of me. It was easy. I actually borrowed some, I did my actor style. I watched some of these people on TV, on other cable shows, these atheists. They have the presidents of the Atheist Club of America and all that stuff. And they're angry. They just get so mad. Their veins are sticking on their neck, and they get so, the nativity scene really upsets them, the cross upsets them. You can't have that out there for the public to see, and it drives them crazy. Why do they get the right to take these down? There's 80 million homes in this country that want to leave up those crosses and nativity scenes. Why don't we have a say? Why is it just one side that gets to control everything? They can put up whatever they satanic crap they want to put up there, that's fine. Do we care? Do we pay attention to it? No, we feel sorry for them more than anything else. But in God's Not Dead, I got to tell you, that professor was fun for me to play. And people tell me how much they love to hate me. And my mom even came, she goes, I saw the movie, but I didn't like you. And I said, then I did a good job. You know where I stand. So he was written so well. That's his secret, because first you do hate him, because he has nothing but arrogance and intellect. And even that is flawed by the hate he harbors for this all-powerful God that he doesn't believe in. But then something happens in the scene with the student that I'm tormenting that entire time in my class, who wants to debate me on existence. Josh, he looks at me and he goes, what happened to you? And I tell him that as a small boy, I prayed to the grandfather in the sky to save my mom's life of cancer, and she still died. And part of you can understand why, as a young kid, you sort of start growing up that way, and that hate just sort of perpetuates on itself and just builds up. And I call that a crisis of faith. Does it sound familiar? I'm very familiar with the crisis of faith. I already told you guys about that in my little book called True Strength, because I was filming Hercules down in New Zealand. It was 7 years down there. That beautiful, beautiful series. Did I mention it's the most watched TV show in the world? Yeah, I think I did. It's only 176 countries. Anyway. God, near the end of season 5, he touched me right up here. Right up here. I was having all kinds of problems with my left arm. Just really weird throbbing pains. These 3 fingers in this hand were cold and numb. I couldn't figure it wouldn't just go away. It just bugging me. It was just weird. And you know, I was doing most of my own stunts because my ego said that I could, and I loved doing it. It was a jock of me. It was like I felt like a kid playing in the backyard. I had great stunt guys making me look like I was a stud. And it was just really cool. And so season 5 ends, and I head back to LA because I was going to do my promotional stuff on Call the Conqueror, which I shot the year before in the beautiful countries of Croatia and Slovakia. And so I'm on Letterman, I'm on these talk shows, I'm on the East Coast. My arm is like on fire. It's on fire. I couldn't figure what was going on. So Universal Studios sends a doctor into my hotel room. His name was Dr. Dye. D-Y-E, I get it, fine. Change your bloody name, you're a doctor. It's not a good name to have on your car, Dr. Dye. But he hit it on the nail. He kind of said, you need to get this checked out. I think it's cardiovascular. You really should check it out. So I get home. I go to my doctor in Beverly Hills. He was a former team doctor of the Oakland Raiders. Great guy. He's been my doctor for 35 years. Finds a lump way up here in my left subclavicle. He has a very serious look on his face. He says, Kevin, I'm going to arrange tomorrow afternoon. We're going to set a biopsy on this. And I went, biopsy? I said, Doc, I'm Hercules, man. Come on. I'm going to be fine. Next morning, I wake up. I go to see my chiropractor. Now, I've seen this guy for 8 years in Santa Monica, where I used to live. And in 8 years, he's never, ever, ever cracked my neck, because I don't like my neck cracked. I had a crack years before that, never like that. I said, crack anything in my body, leave my neck alone. He knows this. I'm laying on the table on my back. He's working on my shoulders. Voice in my head says, don't let him crack your neck. I'm going, he's never cracked my neck. Don't let him crack your neck. Over and over, I'm arguing with his voice inside my head. I couldn't quite figure out. He's never. So while I'm arguing the voice, my chiropractor unwittingly did the thing that ultimately broke me, and he cracked my neck. I suffered 3 strokes. That lump right up here in my left subclavicle had been spitting blood clots. It was an aneurysm. For months, been spitting blood clots slowly, suffocating the flow of blood into my arm. These 3 fingers were almost cut off completely because they were turning light blue and cold. And that crack of 3 strokes caused me 3 years of hell. Now, I told you before I had faith, but I never needed faith until I was hit with this incredible challenge. So I prayed. I prayed a lot. And isn't that what many of us do when we hit those roadblocks in life? We rail, we scream, we panic, cry. We blame everything. We blame God, a God we don't believe in. We blame family, friends, the world, the government, whatever. We don't want to take it into our own hands when we need to look in the mirror. I say, cue the Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror. Look in the mirror, because that's where it starts. And we pray. We reach, God, please to heal us. And it's sad that a roadblock has to be that catalyst to make us talk to God when he really wants us there all the time. Talk to him all the time. Be happy. Find a place to be happy. Reminds me of a little joke, actually, because it's Christmas time, right? It's a couple days before Christmas. The mall is packed, and this guy's in his car, and he hasn't bought any gifts yet, and it's 2 days before Christmas. He's driving through the mall. He's getting further and further away from the main entrance. He's getting so angry. He goes, God, please give me a parking spot. I will go to church every Sunday the rest of my life if you just give me a parking spot. Boom, parking spot opens up. He goes, hey, God, don't worry about it. I just found it myself. Right? Come on. You've done something like that. Now, I mentioned that I was raised in a Lutheran church, and as a child, went to church every Sunday, of course, with my family. My pastor, Pastor Sandus, was a scary guy to me. It was hellfire and God's wrath and brimstone, and I felt like breathing was a sin. It was just, oh, you scared the heck out of me. And that's when he was being charming and lighthearted. This guy was just scary to me. So when I was about 8 years old, I started really to watch him up there while the hymn's being sung before he gets up to give his sermon. And I would watch him. And he would always put his head against the brick. He's sitting in that little mini pastor pew. And he puts his head up against the brick behind him, and he would, eyes open, looking up. So it happened on one Sunday that I got chosen to be the little altar boy, which is really kind of cool. You got to wear the miniature pastor robe. You had that little lighter, you lit all the candles. You got to walk down in front of all the pews. And you sit up with him in the pew, looking at all the suckers in the congregation. I'm up here. And so sure enough, we're singing a song that leads into that, for him to do the sermon. And I look up at him. And he's got his head against it, looking up. And I go, Pastor, you do that all the time. Why do you do that? And he looks down at me and he says, well, son, I do that, and I pray to God that he helps me preach a good sermon. I look up and I said, so why doesn't he help you? I'm 8, He tells my dad, we get home, I figure I'm in trouble. My dad just started laughing. Because I think that's, kids say the darndest thing for those old enough to remember that TV show. So just being a kid. Now, it was a great shock when my foundational faith was shaken by my illness at the very core of me, which was my brain. And let me tell you, God and I had some long, long talks, tough talks during those 3 years. And often it seemed like he wasn't paying attention to me, that he wasn't listening to me, like he didn't care at all. And I wrestled with God. He wins, by the way. Don't wrestle with God. You're not going to win that fight. My faith was tested by my illness in ways I never could have imagined. And if it wasn't for the power of prayer and my wife Sam with her tough love, I don't know if I could have gotten through it. And the miracle, really, the true miracle was I met my wife 1 year before my strokes. And whenever I got down, the Pittsburgh and New Yorker in her, she'd look at me and go, Kevin, it happened. What are you going to do about it? That's what I say to you right now, with all the rough lives we're all going to have and the roadblocks we're all going to have, because I all know you guys have all reached them and I know you all have your own stories. What are you going to do about it? Makes a big difference in just saying, okay. And thank God I got strong will from my parents and from the sports I played and everything. I fought through it. Even though I got down, I still fought through it. And my wife was the main reason. But I'll tell you right now, I really don't know how I would have survived without her constant nagging. Her contradictions of my own self-pitying and just annoying optimism that she had. It drove me crazy. But she believed in me. She believed in my recovery when I couldn't see it, and she reassured me when I doubted. It was a life-changing epiphany to recognize that God isn't there to make problems go away, but he is there to help you get through them. So, as Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, which is right this weekend, right now, guys, he said, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. And just to let you know, tomorrow, the tomb will be empty. Just so you know. God needed to empty me out in order to fill me up with his good news and his message to me. And so I tell you that my career took a completely unexpected twist after my illness. I used to get stopped in airports, at malls, grocery stores, every day by someone saying, loved Hercules, loved Andromeda. 80% or more of the time now, it's, I love Soul Surfer, God's Not Dead, What If, Let There Be Light, please keep making movies like that. That's what they stopped me for now. If you haven't seen those movies I just mentioned, shame on you. I left you all today with a copy of Let There Be Light. And it's a wonderful story. My wife actually wrote it. I'll tell you a quick story about how that even happened. I'm sitting in my office. We left California 4.5 years ago. So we now live in Florida now, thank God. And, but I'm at my office in my house, and I got a phone call. The phone rings, I pick up. Hello, Sorbo, it's Hannity. And I wasn't surprised they had my number. I've been on a show many times, a lot of the Fox shows. Fox is still one of the last places we can actually go and promote a faith movie, which is just sad. That's the only place I'll have us on. He said, look, I love those movies you do, God's Not Dead, and What If, you got something like that? And I said, well, actually, my wife just finished a script that I read that's really quite good. He goes, well, fly to New York and tell me about it. I go, oh, can I just tell you over the phone? Get on the plane. Hangs up. It's Hannity. This attention span's pretty quick. We fly to New York, and we pitched him. So for 30 minutes, we tell him the story. The miracle is in that 30 minutes, Sean Hannity did not interrupt us once. That was a miracle. See, I paid attention to that. He turned around in his chair, comes back with a checkbook, wrote us a check right then and there. Every time I've been fortunate, because I worked my butt off to try to raise $2 or $3 million. It sounds like a lot, but I mentioned earlier, that's catering budget on Pirates of the Caribbean. It is. Those are $300 million movies we've got to compete against. And I'm trying to do movies with a good message. But he wrote a check right then and there, and he said, hey, I know nothing about your business. I don't need updates. I don't need photos. I don't need to see. You call them dailies? I go, yeah, you call them dailies. Each day you develop those daily shots. I don't need to see that. When the movie is completely done, send it to me when it's ready to go in theaters. And I said, Sean, you are my most favorite executive producer I've ever met in my entire life. Because usually they're a pain in the butt. And quickly, when the movie was done, before it released in theaters, I sent it to Sean. I wanted to bring it out there and show everybody at Fox. He said, no, I'm just going to watch it myself. So he calls us 2 days later. He says, are you recording this? I go, no, I'm not recording this. He goes, good. I don't record my conversations. He goes, well, just checking. Damn it, your movie made me cry. And I don't cry. And I said, Sean, that means there's a soul in there. And there's hope for you. To me, I said I knew the movie was going to do well. Look, I love doing movies with messages of hope and love and redemption and love, faith, laughter, things that Hollywood doesn't do because we need those kinds of things. I was with my family in Salt Lake City Airport after God's Not Dead came out. This very beautiful woman, early 30s, comes up, had a lovely little daughter, 7, 8 years old maybe. She says, are you Kevin Sorbo? And the way when she spoke, I knew right away, somewhere Middle East, I don't know where, somewhere from the Middle East. She says, I am from Iraq, I'm Muslim, I watched your movie, God's Not Dead, twice, and I became a Christian because of your movie. Amazing. Amazing. And she had gotten baptized as well. And my wife starts crying, so that makes me cry. She's crying, we're standing, we're praying right in the middle of the airport, people are looking over what's going on. It was amazing. Look, Jesus called on us to make disciples of all the nations, right? Inviting everyone to join in the body of Christ in the church. But in America today, people of faith have been cowed to accept a politically correct lie from the depths of you-know-where. Christianity is under attack in movies, television, DVDs, and the worst place we have right now is the internet. The internet is the Wild West. There are great things about it, but there's a lot of evil about that as well. The people who choose to live in darkness and deceit instead of truth and light, and we need to bring them the truth and light. My hope is that all of us here are empowered by God to bring truth and light to people's lives. One of my favorite poems is from Robert Frost. Many of you probably know it, The Road Less Traveled. And I think Jesus was the ultimate guy, the first guy to really travel the road less traveled. I know I do it, and I'm sure many of you are doing it as well. I need your help to turn the road less traveled into a superhighway. Please help me do that. We need to do that. First Peter 3:5 says this, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. I have a documentary called Against the Tide that I did with John Lennox. John Lennox is an apologist. He's an amazing, brilliant man. He was a retired math professor from Oxford University in England. I spent 3 weeks away from there and 2 weeks in Israel putting this documentary together. You need to see Against the Tide. I call it Apologetics for Dummies Like Me, because it's amazing. He's an amazingly brilliant man. And he destroys the greatest atheists and debates in the world, which you'll see on that DVD and that documentary, Dawkins and Singer and Hitchens. He destroys them with love and kindness. He sounds like Winnie the Pooh when he talks. And he's just a great, cool guy. It's like the grandfather you all want to have. He's just a cool, cool guy. My wife actually, who wrote Let There Be Light, she actually developed a faith-based TV series called Miracle Man. It was about 5 years ago. And we sold it actually to Sony and NBC. But it's what happened at another network pitch that really opened my eyes to what's really wrong with what's going on in Hollywood. So we pitched to about 10 executives out of the network. And the thing about Miracle Man, it's not even close to being touched by an angel, because they would never show that today on television. It's too much of God in it. So we called it Punch by an Angel, because it's hard-hitting. It deals with the life of a retired Navy SEAL. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So we did the pitch. And this woman, this executive, she sits there and she says, all right, Kevin, I get that there's an audience for this. I realize that you have a following in this faith world. And I know that people want this kind of thing. They want to look at shows like you're doing. I just don't know why they want to watch it. Isn't that amazing? This is Hollywood. Her faith, she admitted, it's over there. It's on a shelf, she said. It's somewhere over there. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a crisis of faith in this country, and the real crisis is people don't even know they've lost their faith. Her faith is somewhere sitting over there on a shelf. What good is faith if it sits on that shelf? I mean, God isn't like a shopping mall on the internet where you just order things from him when it's convenient to order things from him. I had the pleasure of meeting Justice Antonin Scalia at the Reagan Library at an event that Gary Sinise was hosting. When I lived in California, I lived very close to the Reagan Library. We were members there for all 10 years. We lived down that area. And every 3 months, we're homeschoolers. We take the kids. They have a different sort of, King Tut's tomb, George Washington's teeth, whatever it may be. We'd go and check it out. So Gary Sinise had put this thing together with Justice Antonin Scalia. What an amazing guy. And after his speech, he was signing his book. And they said, Gary got up there and said, you can wait in line, you can get his book signed, but he doesn't take any selfies, not taking pictures. So I waited, half an hour. I finally got up there with my book. And I said, please make it to Kevin. He looked up and he goes, oh my God, Hercules! A Supreme Court justice, one of the best, knew who the heck I was. And he goes, I want a picture with you. And I said, hell yeah, I want a selfie with you too. So I was the only one I got to take a picture with him. But he's got a quote, which I love. And this was Justice Antonin Scalia's quote. God assumed from the beginning that the wise of the world would view Christians as fools. And he has not been disappointed. If I brought any message today, it is this. Have the courage to have your wisdom regarded as stupidity. Be fools for Christ and have the courage to suffer the contempt of the sophisticated world. It's a great quote. Wise, really wise words from one of the greatest minds that ever served on our Supreme Court. And when he passed away, I had this vision that St. Peter would be at the pearly gates telling some poor guy that, yeah, don't worry, you'll get into heaven, but not before Justice Scalia dissents first. The question remains, are we willing to be fools for Christ? Are we willing to profess what today amounts to stupidity, to stand up for our morals, our beliefs, or does faith sit over there in some shelf, and separate, uninvolved in our daily lives? Because faith requires that leap of conviction. That moment when you realize some people just aren't going to want to work with you anymore. Happened to me. They might not want to speak with you or even like you anymore. Your friends may not be friends anymore, but they were never friends to begin with. You can lose them. I lost my career and found a different door to go through. They don't like it because you have belief, and belief is power that frightens people who don't understand it. Truth scares people who love the lies. It is the light that forces evil to flee into darkness. But it's also truth that saves. It sets the captives free. And trusting that the outcome is in God's hands, not in ours. But it requires your faith and it requires your service to him as well. Scalia unlocked the key to faithfulness, the key to happiness, which is conviction. It is conviction that he prescribed for all of us. It is conviction that the film God's Not Dead helped that young woman to find God, to find Christianity. And she found that light wasn't hidden under a barrel. And its conviction is what's required from every single one of us. And I think it is lacking to a large degree in the broader community with regards to faith in Christianity. And I remind pastors all the time, you work for God, you do not work for government. Do not turn into these woke pastors that are out there. Yeah. What I believe is the biggest killer, not only in America, but in the world today, is apathy. What can I do? I don't know. It took a drop of rain to start the ocean. I think there's a lot of drops that can start happening in our world too. Don't be afraid. Do not let fear hold you back. Like I said earlier, the only person that's supposed to fear is God. Don't fear what the media says. I get attacked every single day. Bring it on. I'm okay with that. People are looking for something more, and we live in a culture of seekers. They may not know what they seek, but I know what they seek. They seek the truth. They've been sold a bag full of lies, and they're craving for the truth. And we as Christians have the ability to provide those people with the truth as believers. We must always be reaching out to our faith in others. As Paul said, faith comes from hearing the message. And in the noise of the day, how can anyone hear the message if not for us believers who are willing to share the gospel with other people? It's Easter weekend. How do I look at that middle cross? How do I look at it? And how my own life has anything in common with what Jesus was doing. His was the ultimate sacrifice, so don't misunderstand that I'm comparing myself. But he set the bar high, but he didn't set it for us to run away from it. We all have that moment. We all have that moment to make some kind of sacrifice. Here I was on top of the world playing on the #1 TV show in the world, playing the strongest man in the world. Then it was taken away by the hand of God, and he gave me an out because I didn't listen to that out like an idiot. And I wrestled with him. And eventually he brought me to my knees in prayer. Over time, I recognized my story was a story of sacrifice. I had to give up the old me. I had to die to live in Christ. And once I realized how to do that, it was hard. It was hard to do. But God remade me, and he redeemed me, and he gave me children, a fruitful life, and a career, and the courage to stand for my convictions. Don't stand down. You know, our culture tells us that sacrifice is evil, it's difficult, you're going to be giving up something. But they never tell you that it's worth the price, because God knows the sacrifice is worth the price when it's a voluntary sacrifice. And we should be searching for ways to sacrifice to God what is ours to give him, because he blesses us abundantly. Don't let your belief or your life sit on a shelf. Don't do that. Every soul matters to God. And if we keep and we hope to continue to be blessed as a nation under God, we must get back to our convictions, and all it takes is that first step. Be fools for Christ. God bless you. God bless America. Have an amazing Easter. God bless you. Turn the lights up. Turn the lights up. Where are the lights? Anyone turn the lights up? Come on. I want to see all those people out there. Thank you. God bless you guys. Thank you. Thank you.